Hey everybody, and welcome to Project Premium Harvest. My name is Matt. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing my portfolio, what I plan on doing in the month of December, and then the strategic level decisions I'm going to make for the rest of my account and for this project moving forward. Quick shout out to all of Oracle subscribers that came over from his channel to my channel. Appreciate you guys. Also, thank you so much, Oracle, for sending him over. He was the inspiration as to why I started this project in the first place. Saw someone just as crazy as me. I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. All right. But let's get started. For anyone that is new to my channel, I'm just going to do a quick little overview. Started this project back in June of 2024. So, 6-7 months ago, took out an $83,000 HELOC loan against a rental property I own, threw that money into Robinhood, borrowed against it using margin. And I was very risk adverse with my margin usage. I only did about $75,000, even though I could have used probably $200,000 to $300,000 more. But yeah, that's just a quick little overview. And the first thing I like to talk about in my account is my account value, right? Started the project off at $102,000, currently is at $112,000. So that is a net gain of $10,000. Plus, I pulled out about $33,000 from this account to pay back my HELOC loan faster. All right, so starting from now until continuing the project forward, I am not going to be trying to pay off my HELOC loan as fast as possible, right? So when I pay off the HELOC loan, I'm probably going to take out another HELOC loan and throw the money back into Robinhood. So instead of taking that money to pay off a loan faster, those thousands of dollars I'm just going to keep in the account to invest in other things to make more money, and then have the snowball effect to just make a shit ton of money later down the line. That's kind of the thought process. I was definitely risk adverse initially because I didn't know if this project was going to be successful. Didn't want to potentially risk part of my rental property as a consequence of this a failure for this project, right? But last 7 months I'm pretty confident that everything's going good. I've made $40,000+ in this account, so that's almost 50% returns if you look at it, which is far outseeding the S&P 500. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is my margin usage, right? Initially, it was very risk adverse. Was only keeping it at $75,000. I would surge to $100,000 if I saw the right opportunity happen, right? But I was very risk adverse. However, I'm going to change that now. I took off the limit for my margin, so now maximum I can use is about $265,000. And so I'm going to try to use most of it to make more money, right? So I'm not going to go too crazy with it, all of that margin, right? So I'm going to put about $100,000 into core foundational holdings. And what I consider core foundational holdings are stocks that they're going to appreciate in value, but they're also going to pay a income distribution. So my top 3 funds for that are xdte, rdte, amzp. And then I also am going to throw a little bit of ymax in that $100,000 fund. So let's just talk about it here for a second, right? So for xdte, it's a great weekly pair, right? And so I did the math for that $100,000. If I were to invest it into $30,000 into xdte, $30,000 into amzp, $30,000 into rdte, and then $10,000 into ymax, I'm going to be making about $2,200 extra a month just from running an extra $100,000 in my Robinhood, right? But then let's talk about the debt considerations. So for every $25,000 of margin I borrow, it's $125 per month. To me, that low number is so insignificant. It's why would I ever want to pay that margin off, right? So for a $100,000 account, it'd be about $400 or $525 per month, and I'm making $2,200. It doesn't even make sense for me not to do this, right? And because these are core foundational holdings, they're not going to fluctuate in value too much, right? xdte is going to maintain its NAV. amzp, if you looked at the past year, it's up 17+%, maybe even more. Plus it's distributing about 32 cents per share per month. So that's pretty solid numbers, right? So that's kind of the thought process with one of the $100,000. And then the other $100,000 extra, I'm going to be looking for an opportunity. And I plan on investigating into ulty a little bit for these, I would call them hit and run plays. Yeah, so let's take a look at ulty for a second, right? I'm not really a big fan of actually holding ulty, but if you buy ulti on an ex-dividend date, hold it until the declaration date of when they're calling out to sell it and then sell it. That's the same as just holding it and then dealing with the NAV. But here, if you do that, you potentially might never have to deal with NAV erosions. All right, so let me explain my situation here, right? So say, for example, I bought in $100,000 of ulti at this share price of $9.63 on ex-dividend date. That's probably going to be the lowest price of the month because it has to deal with pulling out the distribution from the share price, right? So 963 by $100,000, that'd be over 10,000 shares of this, right? I basically would ride up ulty until the declaration date, right? If ulty's NAV does not recover to this number of, $10.68, $10.83, then basically the point would be to sell out. But if it can hit this point and then pay out, you can stay in. But if it doesn't get anywhere near this number, you might as well just sell out at this 1068 mark or before that, or this 1035 mark, and then just cash in your money. So instead of having to experience that, say we'll use this example like 1035, and then when you bought in it was like 1068, you basically would save yourself 33 cents of NAV erosion if you just sold out before the X dividend date, right? So that's what I plan on doing with that $100,000 is I'm going to buy on these X dividend dates, which is something I've already been doing for a couple of months, but I just haven't really organized my thoughts. And I wasn't putting as much money and focus into it because NVIDIA has just been doing so good for me. And it never had to have gotten to this point where I was worried about NAV erosion, but the market conditions are changing. And I'm going to explain that in a second here, right? I'm going to discuss my different phase lines. But so look, this from $9.63 to about $10.35, that's 72 cents, right? That you can lock in, right? For my $100,000 account, that's about $7,200 that I would have locked in, and I wouldn't have to appreciate or worry about NAV erosion. Then I'd sell every single dollar of my ulty. I would net $7,200 and not have to deal with NAV erosion. Guys, I think that's like the recipe for success here in these yieldmax funds. But if you're the set and forget it type, you're going to experience NAV erosion. And I highly recommend that that's something that we don't do here because I'm not a big fan of NAV erosion at all. But yeah, guys, that's just kind of my thought process that I'm going to be doing with that extra $100,000. I could be squeezing out an extra $7,200 for, and then not doing NAV erosion every single week. And that's only going to cost me, I make $7,200 and all I have to do is pay about another $525 in margin. Guys, that makes too much sense to not do, right? Yeah, guys, so you heard me talk about that ulty strategy with that extra $100,000. If it's successful, between the throwing the $100,000 into xdte, rdte, amzp, and also throwing into like that very NAV conscious, plays where we just kind of write it up and sell before X dividend, then I potentially could be making an extra $10,000 in this portfolio on top of what I'm already making with my investment in nvdy. So that's almost doubling my money, right? So from usually like the $7,000 to $8,000 range, we could be bumping it up to, $16,000 to almost $20,000. That's a significant change, right? So I'd be willing to risk it by taking out more margin to experiment that thought process, that mental exercise, Let's talk about so we talked about phase 0, which, we need money to make money, either take out debt, work a W-2. So I'm taking out more debt, more margin so I can make more money. Just makes sense, right? In my current situation. Phase line 1, actual process of making a ton of money. So you could either do that running options calls yourself. You can invest in yieldmax funds. So currently I kind of do like a hybrid where I have yieldmax funds. The one I'm heavily invested in right now is nvdy. As you guys can see here, I have about 7,000 shares. And this is what I wanted to talk about, the market conditions. Right now, if you look at nvdy actual, so if we look at nvdy actual, the share price over this past couple of weeks and couple of months, it's definitely stagnated. It's hit its 52-week high and it hasn't broken past that. And so with these yieldmax funds, if there isn't like a significant progression forward, then I'm going to experience NAV erosion. I don't like NAV erosion, so I'm going to try to prevent that any way possible. And I'm going to explain here in a second, right? So right now we're in a little downward trend, and I'm going to be monitoring that with nvdy, right? So currently my cost basis for my 7,000 shares of nvdy is about $25.35, right? So the next X dividend date is going to be the second week of January. So we're going to see if my nvdy shares go past that number of 25.35, I'm keeping the shares and, I'm going to continue riding with nvdy. But if it's getting near that timeline and the NAV isn't recovering, then I'm going to sell out. I might have to take a loss, but for me to protect my investment, I'm willing to do that. But there's going to be a balance, right? And for me, it has to be like that perfect number. Otherwise, I might just stay I might have to take one gut punch of NAV erosion, right? So there isn't like a perfect calculation as to when or why to pull out your money, or just keep it in. But for me, you definitely have to think about it. And so my other point here is, right, So in the month of like late November, December, I actually ran calls against nvdy and made an extra $3,000. So, you know, if I hold on to these shares, the NAV isn't going to deteriorate too bad. And then I can throw in, you know, some covered calls on my nvdy shares, you know, run 60 calls or 70 calls against my shares, and I make an extra $3,000. That kind of negates some of that NAV erosion. I'd be willing to, you know, hold on to the shares, but if the covered calls, the prices aren't going to be looking too hot, this share price isn't recovering too much, then I might have to sell out. So there's just that calculation coming up in my head, and I'm not going to know until I have more time and more data to analyze. That's kind of my phase line zero. Phase line zero is getting that money. Right now, I'm in this kind of purgatory land where, depending on how it sways and how the market moves for nvdy, this is going to determine if I'm going to stay invested or I'm going to pull out and just kind of run that same strategy I just talked about with ulty. And instead of just running, you know, $100,000 what I'm doing now, I'll just throw in my full weight of whatever I had invested in nvdy, which was $150,000. So then, yeah, that's kind of the thought process with my phase line 1 stuff. So then phase line 2 is more locking in your gains, right? So if you kind of what I talked about earlier with the xdte, amzp, and rdte, with that $100,000, I also have 2 more funds of jpq. I'm actually planning on selling out of jp. As one of the guys in my comment section, Joey Davis, shout out to you. You made a great recommendation of investing into jpix instead of jp, because the share price appreciation has been significantly higher than jp, and the distribution is a little bit lower for jpix. I'll pull it up real quick. Yeah, so this is jpix from Goldman Sachs. So if you compare JEPI and jpix from side by side, jpix has outperformed it. Jpix has only been out for like 13 or 14 months, so it's a little bit shorter time frame than JEPI, but it has, if you compare the same timelines from when jpix was introduced to when JEPI that was been around, jpix has blew it out of the water. So let's take a look here, right? So in the last year, jpix is up, you know, 18%, and it pays out, you know, about 32 cents a share. While if you look at JEPI, if you look at a 1 year timeline, it's only up 10%, which is not that great, right? And the distribution was a little bit higher, but it was only like 2 cents higher. So for me, I'd rather get, you know, 8% more appreciation with jpix than JEPI. Plus, it's about $10 cheaper. Then it's about $10 cheaper than JEPI, right? So going back to that phase line 2 approach, right? So I'm that $100,000. I plan on reinvesting it within itself, so that the xdte, amzp, rdte, ymax, believe it or not, I'm actually going to reinvest in the ymax. I kind of want to run a little side project to see if at this current price, if I bought it in at like a good price and reinvest the distributions, you know, could this be a viable option for one of the more longer term approaches for yieldmax? And for me, I like to test with real money. I don't like to run theoreticals and things like that. So here we are. And then I'm going to track it with some spreadsheets later down the line. But I plan on selling JEPI and replacing it with jpix. And I'm keeping JEPQ because Goldman Sachs also has this JPIQ, but the JP Morgan one's a little bit better. So I'll have both of those. But the only way I'm going to invest in these two is from distributions from nvdy or from ulty. And then I'll put in a couple thousand here and there, but I don't plan on putting a lot of money. It's only from the distributions, while the xdte, amzp, ymax, and rdte, that's all going to be stuff that I'm going to be putting in a lot more chunks in because I like those funds a lot better. All right, guys, so let me know what you guys think about what I'm going to be doing with my strategy. If you think that increasing my margin is a good idea, bad idea, let me know in the comment section. Also, let me know what you think of that ulty strategy with that $100,000. Let me know how that, if you guys think that appreciation is a good idea, or if you think it's just a better idea investing into the fund and just holding on to it. Yeah, let me know in the comment section. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up this video with 2 specific shout outs. First shout out's going to go to Oracle ETFs. He's been giving me a few shout outs here and there, and also was one of the reasons why I started this project in the first place. Appreciate it. Great idea factory. Go check out his channel. I'm going to put links to both his channels, his high income stuff, high income ETF, and then also his Oracle ETFs. And then the other channel I'm going to do a shout out to is my brother, the Not Guru Investor. He takes a different approach investing than I do, but I think I'm slowly changing his mind. So he's a Tesla bull. He's got about 900 shares of Tesla, so his account is about $300,000, and he's in the process of trying to invest into funds that are more weekly income pairs and things of that nature. So definitely check out his channel. Yeah, guys, so I appreciate you staying for the video. Appreciate the likes, comments, subscriptions, things like that nature. Enjoy your journey out there, guys. Have fun. Be safe. Love you all.